it came out better than I think we even expected. We've always had vertical pins, whether it was the 1V or the 3V, but they were fixed pin configurations, right? There was no adjusting the pin gap where now you can. We were talking like I've been a single pin user my entire life, but now like I find myself even being like I can't wait to get my 3VA. Even though I know I'll probably never use the
Yeah.
second and third pins, but it's just having that option. It's in my opinion, it's like the best of both worlds between having vertical pins and horizontal pins. You're combining the two mentalities or the two designs.
I was like, well, if I throw a mic on, then I can help others the way that these people have all helped me.
Born in the heart of the Pennsylvania deer camp, with the help of experts, friends, and local legends, we bring you valuable knowledge and powerful stories for your hunting adventures. Welcome to the East Meets West Hunt Podcast with your host, Beau Martonik.
All right, we're live. Scott Bakken, welcome to the podcast. Please tell me I said that right. I meant to ask you your last name before.
You nailed it.
I've known you for years now, and I thought about it when we were going to set this up. I was like, man, I don't even know your last name. You're just Scott to me.
Yeah, no, it's funny how, I mean, everybody, they either call me by my last name, so those that know my last name, but it's like, I feel like most people don't know my last name or like how to actually like say it. So it's just Scott or like, hey, you, like, I respond to just about anything. So
just, any sort of noise or anything in your direction.
Yeah. Just a grunt or a mumble. I'll probably respond.
Yeah.
But well, you nailed it.
It's good to get to see you again. We typically spend a lot of time around each other during the Total Archery Challenge circuit, and then during the hunting seasons and other times of the year, I don't see you too much.
No, it's kind of funny how that works. Like, I was actually thinking about this the other day. Like, all my friends, are in the industry, but none of them live here. And so I get to see all my buddies, for 4 months out of the year. And then once the TAC tour is over, I don't see them for a whole year. But it's also kind of like I've spent enough time around them. It's like, all right, like I'm good. I need a couple months break from everybody. But but I mean, that's also kind of the cool thing though, right? Like you get to spend a lot of time around each other during the heat of the battle, but you can go months without talking. And like we all get caught up in hunting season and our own day-to-day lives, but then, having the opportunity to come on here and it's like, hey man, like haven't seen you in a couple months, but you look good. And so what's new?
Yeah.
Not much. How about you? Not much. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
hunting,
great,
busy.
Yeah. Great to catch up with you, man. Glad you're doing well.
Yeah. That is so true. It's funny though about like the TAC circuit when you go to a lot of those events, working them, you see so many of the same people, and I've created such good relationships with people throughout the years. But it is funny you said that about like the break. I'm a person that I don't care who it is, could be the best person in the entire world. I can't spend a ridiculous amount of time with anybody. So, or I get annoyed for reasons that are more my own fault, but I just like, I like having, segments where I'm with people.
Well, and I think, I know for me personally, the older I get, like the more I appreciate like kind of like just doing like, I can barely tolerate myself like for a whole day. So to be around a bunch of other people, it's not really my thing. So it's kind of funny that like doing what I do for Dialed, like going to all the TACs and everybody's like, well, Bakken hates people. Like, why do you subject yourself to that? I'm like, cause it's what I have to do. And like the TACs, like it's different, like it's great group of people. Like, I mean, like to your point, some of the best people I've ever met were at the TAC events, but like you said, we see each other week after week after week for 4 months. And then at the end of it, like, I'm like, all right, guys, like we'll see in a year. Like, don't call me, don't text me. Like, you do need that, that separation and just like the you time. Right. And that's when, you know, hunting's just right around the corner. So it's like, it's almost then it's like a totally different group of people you get to hang out with. But yeah, no, I'm with you. And like I said, I know for me, the older I get, like the more I enjoy just kind of the seclusion of, you know, my own space.
Yeah, I don't remember. So there's one of my funniest moments I remember where someone was pranking you at TAC, and I don't know if this ever even came out as far as who it is, but I'm gonna rat him out right here. Do you remember what Ethan Demai did to you with the emails?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I forget. Fuck, who was it? Because that's when I was still doing the customer service emails, and I yeah, and I can't remember. Was it you or was it somebody? Somebody gave me a heads up and was like, "Hey, when you're going through emails, it was Ethan or something like that." Well, I forgot about it, and I came across his email. You know, him pretending he was a pissed off customer, and even though somebody warned me about it, I forgot about it, and it definitely was not the right day for me to like get an email like that. And I remember like I unloaded and I was just like, well, fuck you. Like, you know, if you don't like what we do, like, you know, go do your own. And I remember like my frustration came out in that email. And then he texted me and was like, bro, I'm sorry. I didn't realize like you were in such a bad space, like whatever. I'm like, dude, like it's like that. Yeah. I think that was like our second year at Pennsylvania TAC, because our first year at Pennsylvania TAC was a train wreck. And yeah, I do remember that. I laughed about it after the fact, but at the time
it wasn't funny in the moment.
No, I did not. I was not in any mood to be messed with. But then after, like, I remember late in that day and being like, all right, touche, you know, like.
Well, I remember, no, I did not give you the heads up, by the way, but I remember because I was in a booth.
Somebody texted me and was like, it was Ethan. And I remember like reading it and being like, what was Ethan? Like, I didn't connect the dots. And then I saw his, you know, email, and I'm being like, oh, hell no, dude. Like, and it didn't click. And then after I responded to his email, and then he texted me and was like, dude, like, I was just kidding. I'm like, oh shit. Now it all makes sense now. But I remember like texting and being like, yeah, like, you know, that's funny. Like I said, I laughed about it after the fact.
Yeah.
But I remember being like, you know, it's like that fuck around and find out, like play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Like you just never know what mood I'm in. So
well, that was because like I remember some of the email, and he called you a wannabe. He's like, this guy Scott wannabe influencer.
Yeah,
and I know because
that's what struck my nerve with that comment, because I'm in like, if anybody that knows me is like, I am 100% the exact opposite. Like, everything against that. So to like, for somebody to call me out on that, that's what set me off, was that one comment and being like, wannabe influencer, like, motherfucker, like, like.
Yeah, and it's funny because anybody that knows you is like, you don't want any spotlight on you. You're doing like, even doing this, like obviously you and I would chat either way, but as far as like doing it on video or the stuff you have to do for Dialed, it's because of your job versus you wanting to be on camera and talk about it. So that's what made it like so much funnier. But I remember that event too, because it was kind of a shit show with people coming in and trying to get stuff done, and you were busy as can be, and like hitting it that time was just like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna stay over here away from Scott while he's reading these,
because I didn't see the email till like the next day or like 2 days after. And you know, Pennsylvania, that's always like the halfway point for TAC, right? So like I had already been on the road for like 5 or 6 weeks, so like my battery was already like on E. And then, you know, like deal with the logistics and just the stress of being gone. And then for somebody to like call you a wannabe influencer, I was like, all right, like I'm a nice guy, but like it's time, like I'm not gonna keep my mouth shut on this one. And I definitely, I think I might have scared Ethan a little bit.
That's
because I did not hold back on that response. And then, like I said, I didn't think about it. And then I can't remember who it was. Somebody tipped me off on it, but then Ethan texted me. He's like, "Bro, I was just kidding. Like, I didn't mean to like set you off. Like, are we cool?" And like, yeah, I think I think I scared him a little bit, but yeah, I mean, it's some, like I always like to say, like I have thick skin and like nothing really bothers me, but it's like there are certain triggers, and like being called a fake influencer is definitely one of them, because I am like everything but that. Like, yeah, I'm like the most non-influential person ever. So
no, I would agree with that. But
the only thing I influence is do everything like that I don't do. Like if I do it, don't do it. Like, yeah, that's about the only influence I have. Don't follow my footsteps.
Except for when what's your other character that you had in some of those earlier Scooter?
Scooter, yeah, Uncle Scooter.
Uncle Scooter and the early Dialed commercials for Valentine's Day, I believe it was. Man, those are hilarious.
Well, that idea was because like when Dialed first launched, we kind of like kept me behind the scenes a little bit, and you know, so it was a lot of like Taylor and Jordan kind of like in the spotlight. So that Valentine's video was kind of like the release that like I was part of Dialed. And like, I remember when we launched that video, and I don't even know why we decided to go that route. Like I think we just thought it would be funny, you know? And, I remember when we launched that video, like that night, my phone just blew up with like, I knew you were part of Dialed. Like, bro, when did you do like, that was like, everybody found out that, you know, I was part of Dialed. I remember my own mom even texted me and was like, really, this is what like you sacrificed everything and like gave up everything for, was this type of stupid shit? And being like, yeah, I mean, let's be honest. You kind of always knew I was going to take like, you know, this route. Like if Dialed fails, I got to have a backup plan. And, you know, an OnlyFans page doesn't sound that bad. I mean, they make a killing.
Yeah, they do. At least that's what I hear.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know from experience, but you know, seems like every time I look at my news app, there's some OnlyFans influencer that's bragging about how many millions of dollars they made that month. So, but yeah, I forgot about that. Freaking Ethan.
Man, that was it's so funny. He's done stuff like that to me. He does stuff like that all the time. And but I remember that one, and I forgot about. I think Scott's mad at me. I think Scott's mad at me.
I was for like 30 minutes, and then I got over it. But yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, because that was when like he was right across the aisle from us, and then you were like 2 booths down.
Yep.
So like, you watched the whole thing unfold, and maybe it was my buddy Marshall that tipped me off. I can't remember, but it didn't work because I still fell for it. So, but, yeah, what a jokester that Ethan is, you know, what a jokester.
Speaking of that, him and I spent 2 weeks in Alaska together in a tent on the side of the mountain for two weeks straight with just me, him, and Justin, my camera guy, and we didn't kill each other, so that's
impressive.
Worked out.
Yeah, that's impressive. Was that this year you guys did that?
No, that was 2 years ago. Oh, gotcha. That would have been, I think, the year that happened at TAC.
Yeah, that would have been
23,
right?
Or 24. I can't remember, but it was a couple years ago. We were there. We flew in together.
I think that was 23. Or was that last year? That might have been last year.
That was last year.
That was last year.
Was 20.
That was when we were up higher on the hill for our booths. Yeah, that was last. Yeah. That was last year, June or end of May, June timeframe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. That's awesome.
Well, hopefully he learned his lesson.
Yeah, well, yeah. If not, I'll make sure I text him after this and remind him that he needs to. I'll you know what I'll do is I'll play something on him. Be like, man, I just did a podcast with Scott, and he's still really pissed about that.
Yeah,
so maybe I can get him going.
We have till next year to come up with a way to get him back. So
okay, we'll work on it.
Like maybe like when he's at TAC, we'll like set his house on fire or something like that.
Yeah, like something serious.
Yeah, like take it too far.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, oh, what? Who can't take a joke now?
Yeah. Yeah, funny, huh?
Yeah.
No house now, do you?
Yeah. Yeah, who's the homeless guy now?
But yeah, you better hope this whole the whole outfitting thing really takes off for you, Ethan, because otherwise you don't have a house to go back to.
Yeah, let's see how tough you are now without a house.
But anyways, Scott, so how about you give a little bit of a background on who you are, where you kind of grew up and through to where you're at now, because you were talking about, you mentioned a few times there about how everyone was surprised, like what you were doing, going the dial. Just give a little bit of a backstory on who you are.
Yeah, so I grew up in Wisconsin, so I've kind of told this story a million times, but it kind of, it literally, it's like the timeline of what kind of led up to, starting Dialed with Taylor and Jordan. And so growing up in Wisconsin, like I didn't come from like a hunting family. Like my dad wasn't a hunter. My relatives, most of them weren't hunters, but I had an uncle that was a huge bow hunter. And so that's my dad's sister's husband. And so that's how I got my start in bow hunting, was just watching him. And I grew up hunting northern Wisconsin, so hunting the big woods, and got into archery when I was really young. And then that got my dad into archery, got my dad into bow hunting. I have a younger brother that's in the industry, that's a big bow hunter. He actually just killed a giant deer in Iowa, which, I want to be happy for him, but I can't. But so anyways, yeah, I've always, bow hunting and archery was always like a big part of my life. And then going through high school, started working at our local archery shop. And, like I started working there before I could even legally get a worker's permit. They would stick me in this back closet and fletch arrows every day after school. Yep. So, just huffing in all those glue fumes and stuff. Like, yeah, it was a cheap
Makes
high.
Sense.
Yeah. Like I was literally getting paid to get high. So that was kind of cool at that age. But yeah. And then, going through college, it's like, going into my senior year, it's like, what do I want to do? And, originally I thought I wanted to be an accountant, which you asked Taylor, that is not my specialty. Numbers is not my thing. So, I always knew I wanted to like work in the archery industry because, my uncle, he had a smaller archery company. So like getting to go to all the trade shows with him. And, I started meeting people and kind of building a network like at a young age. And so, yeah, I was lucky enough to get a job right out of college as a sales rep, in the archery industry. And then it just kind of expanded from there. And, I guess you could kind of say climbing the corporate ladder. So went from a sales rep to I was a buyer for a really big archery distributor in PA, Kinsey's, and then left there. And it's just kind of like I always think like subconsciously I kind of had this plan of like someday owning my own business. Like my dad owns his own business, my uncle owned his own business, so I was always around like people that owned their own businesses. And so like I said, I think without kind of even knowing it, I always kind of knew that was going to be my goal someday. And then my original plan was when I always thought someday my brother and I would buy my uncle out and, keep his company in the family. He sold it to his right-hand man, who is like a brother to me. So, but once that kind of plan was off the table, it was like, okay, well, what's next? And, going through COVID, like, for me, COVID was like the best thing. 'Cause I was like, wait, I don't have to be around people. Like, I feel like I've been social distancing my whole life. Like, this is amazing. Yeah. But really for me, it gave me time to kind of like reevaluate, like, what does the future look like for me? Like, what is it I really want to do? And I was just kind of at a point where, like, if I was going to take a risk, now's the time. Like, I didn't have anybody that was relying on me, as far as like support, or, it was just me and my dog. So it's like, if I was ever going to just kind of cash everything in and risk it all, now's the time. Because if it doesn't work out, like, I have time to bounce back. Like, as much as failure scares me, like, it was kind of one of those deals where it was worth the risk.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I will say, like, a big part of that was, being friends with Taylor. And, at that time, like, Taylor and I still talk every day, but, like, right now we're business partners, where before we were really good friends. Like, we talked every day. And it just, the one thing I always say, like, I think one of the biggest reasons that Dialed has been as successful as it is just because of the timing. I like truly believe, like, whether it's in life or in business, like, timing is everything, and it just so happened that at that time, I was ready for a change. Taylor was ready for, a change and a new challenge. Jordan was in the same boat. So it's kind of like you have these three guys that were ready to, take on something new and challenging. Yeah, we just started having conversations of, like, what does the future look like for us? And I think I was the one. I was like, where, why don't we just do our own thing? And, like I said, I knew, like, entrepreneurship was kind of the next step for me. Like, I really didn't have any interest in, like, I knew I needed a change. I had to do something different. And, going and working for, like, another company just wasn't that attractive, because it's like, we know a lot of the same people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people in our industry do bounce from, like, company to company to company, right? And I just never wanted to be one of those people. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just, I was looking at it from, like, long term, like, what is it, like, I want to do for the rest of my life? And to be honest, like, a lot of people don't even know this, like, having grown up in the industry and have done it as long as I have, like, I was actually almost ready to get out and just go do something different, like, all I've ever known is archery. That's literally all I've ever done. So there's a part of me where it's kind of like, is there more to me than just the Scott that is an archery? Or, like, I never wanted that to, like, be like an identifier for me. Like, cause we all have, like archery and hunting was always, like, our passion or, like, our hobby. Right. But it's like, I've made a career out of it, and it does change things for you. Like, a little bit of your passion does start to fade. And I was to the point where, like, the last thing I wanted to do was hunt. Like, I really just didn't care about archery or hunting anymore. So I'd kind of lost that, like, fire, or, like, that passion. And I think, like, like, I can look back and, like, kind of evaluate that and be like, yeah, like, I really wasn't in a good place, because, like, here, this, like, activity that I loved, and, like, that was what I did, and I didn't want to do it anymore. Right. So it was kind of like I said, it was just time to change, kind of do a reset. And then, thank God, like, I had Taylor and Jordan kind of there as, like, a sounding board. And then we just kind of started talking about, like, obviously those guys doing what they do, like, I can't do that. Right. But, like, I have these other skills, and it's like, if you bring those all together, what do you have? Right. A pretty good foundation to a new company. Right. But then it was like, what do we do? And, that was where, kind of, like, if there was any uncertainty, it was kind of that period. Cause it's like, how many times do you, like, over beers, or you're talking with buddies and you're like, what we should do? And then everybody's rallied and fired up for a couple of weeks, and then it just fades. Right. So that's kind of what I was expecting to happen when we first kind of started talking about, like, doing our own thing, but it didn't. It just kept snowballing. And then eventually just got to a point where it's like, let's act on this. So I guess that's kind of like, the background as to how we kind of got to where Dialed started. But, as far as, like, me, like I said, like, I've always been involved in archery, and the whole nother layer that got added to that was like guiding, like that was something I always wanted to do when I was younger. And like, even right out of high school, like I thought about going to guide school, but it was just, for me, it was always about like career oriented and honestly, like making money, and, so I kind of like pushed that off. And then, when I got into like my late 20s, early 30s, like started guiding in Alaska and then got connected with the guys that I guide for in Wyoming. And between having Dialed and doing that, like it's definitely reignited that fire again, because you're on it from so many different sides, and like I've been very fortunate, like in my life, like, we were talking before this, like I don't hunt hardly at all anymore. And it's just the reality, with as busy as Dialed is, with as busy as we are, guiding, that just doesn't leave a lot of time to hunt for yourself. But to be honest, like I'm okay with that, because I truly enjoy both sides of that. Like I love what I do with Dialed, even though like we just get busier and busier, you get more thrown on your plate. And, unfortunate for me, like my job for Dialed, I don't get to be involved with like a lot of the fun, glitz and glamour of the business. Like I'm definitely more behind the scenes dealing with the not fun stuff, but that's also my role and like where I can provide the most value. And then with guiding, like it's almost like, well, it's not almost, but like I 100% get more excited watching somebody else shoot something versus my own, like I told you, like when I killed my bull this year, it was with a rifle, which is definitely different, but I mean, killing stuff with a gun is still pretty freaking cool.
Oh yeah.
And, I was excited, but I also was like, man, I almost wish like I could have had a hunter with me to kill this bull, because I would have been way more excited to watch somebody else kill their first bull or whatever. So it's like I found ways to kind of reignite that fire again, but unfortunately it was at the sacrifice of like hunting for myself. But like I said, like I have plenty of time to hunt for myself, and like I've got to do some cool stuff, throughout my life. There's a lot more I want to do, but that can come in time. It's just right now it's kind of just focused on Dialed, keeping that going, and then kind of getting to experience all this other stuff. So it's just, we were talking earlier, like as you get older, things change. And like, I definitely have kind of just, I would say like I've progressed as a hunter, but I've also found enjoyment in kind of like different ways within the industry, right? Rather than just going and hunting for myself. Like now it's, like I said, I find way more enjoyment watching somebody else like shoot something, or like even like watching like our shop guys, like watching them get out and hunt. And like, a lot of them were really successful this year. So it's like, I find way more enjoyment in that than, don't get me wrong. Like I still want to, kill stuff, and I still love having the meat, and, like I still have yet to kill like a big whitetail. So like, I still want that, but it's like, it'll happen when it happens, so lot to unpack there. And just, I guess I never realized that was that complicated, but
no. And I can relate to like as far as, and maybe a little bit more difficult for the people listening, but when you're working in the space, and actually like people that I know that I've grown up with that ask me this all the time, like, do you love hunting as much as you used to now that that's part of your job? And I would say I do, but it's different than what it was before. I used to have like all these goals, like personal goals before I was doing anything with the industry of like, oh, I wanted to go here and shoot a buck and do this. And it was like very, very selfish, personal type goals I wanted to do. And anymore, like I enjoy hunts that I can have a camp with people 100%. And stuff more so than actually just talking about it as we're sitting here. I've a couple options next week where I might be going hunting, and one of them is by myself, but I think I have pretty good odds with a gun going there, knowing the area, that I could kill a pretty nice buck. The other one is very low odds. I know nothing about it, but it's with a good group of people. And it's like, that's the one I want to do.
100%.
And just because I enjoy being around good people and doing that, and hopefully hopefully I hope I'm successful, but I also wouldn't care if it's not me and somebody else in the group, or if all of us strike out and we can laugh about how shitty hunters we are,
Right.
and be together. But I think being cognizant of that, and I've known that from talking to you through the years. It seems like you're a deep thinker on things, and you are aware kind of your own how your own brain works at times, to be able to be aware, I guess, is the awareness level of things. So I think that's important for anyone, as far as like, why are you doing the specific thing? And sometimes that changes throughout the years to be able to identify that.
I think you're 100% right. Cause it's like when we're young, we're so like bloodthirsty, and it's like, I gotta like, and I mean, you could go into a really deep, kind of rabbit hole on this, but I mean, it's just times are different, with social media, and like, this better than anybody. Cause I mean, like doing what you do, but so like, there's definitely like a competitiveness with hunting, right? Like, whether you're in a camp or, just, amongst like a group of peers, like you want to be like the better hunter, right? So like when you're young, you always kind of feel like, and at least for me, like you always felt like you had something to prove, right? And then, but it's like when you really dig into it, it's like, why do we hunt, right? And like we hunt, like, one, for the substance, right? Like we all love the meat, that's what we say. Like that's the reason we hunt, even though we all know, like, we love having the big racks and, the cool trophy pictures, but the meat is definitely part of it. But like anymore, and I think it's maybe just part of like maturing as just an adult, but also as a hunter, your values or like what's important to you changes. So like 10 years ago, or even 15 years ago, where the emphasis was on killing a big deer or a big bull or whatever, now it's more like the camaraderie and the memories, right? Like, I mean, like some of my favorite hunts actually had nothing to do with me. I was just there along for the ride,
Yep.
But so I think it definitely changes over time. And, I actually had this conversation with one of my fellow board members of Pope and Young. There's so many cool hunting opportunities out there. Like you get outside of the whitetail, right? I mean, whether it's going out west, going on sheep hunts, going on all these crazy places, why would you want to experience that by yourself? Right? Like if I ever drew like a sheep tag or like went on a sheep hunt, there's no way I would want to do it by myself. Like I would want somebody there with me to like share that memory with, because like me having that memory by myself is still really cool. And granted, you have pictures that you can show people, but then having that other person that can like share that experience with you and talk about that experience, like that's more important to me than like killing a giant animal, right? And I think, the sad truth about like hunting is that it can divide a lot of people, right? Whether it's the argument of vertical bows versus crossbow hunters, bow hunters versus gun hunters, but like at the end of the day, we're all hunters, right? And hunting should bring people together, not separate them, right? But hunting can also be a really good, it's a really good way to kind of like learn more about people, right? Like all the guys that you've shared camp with, right? All the people that we've had come through camp in Wyoming, like 99% of them, you realize you have a lot in common, but then you also learn some stuff where you're like, you know what? Like, I thought we were kind of like cool, but yeah, I really don't like you anymore. Like, so hunting exposes a lot, good and bad. Right. But overall, I think it brings a lot of people together that like normally you would never meet, or you would never know that you have similar interests,
100%.
And, so like, that's what I think, again, like getting away from like focusing on, the success or the quality. And it's like now more about the camaraderie and like the bonding. I think that's what's really changed things for me, and like example, like I leave for Ohio on Sunday and I went there last year by myself, which is fun. Like it was still like a good group of guys in camp, but like now 2 buddies are going with, and like I'm more excited at the fact that they're coming, and like, yeah, I want to kill a really big deer, but I also really want to see them kill something. And like, if they get something and I don't, I will be just as happy,
Yeah.
So, but I think a lot of that does come with like age and just maturing,
Hmm.
but I think like we all have like our reasons why we hunt. And it's not that, it's not like your reason is like wrong compared to mine. But I think a lot more people would realize like we're not all that different if you took the actual animal out of the picture, and it was more focused on like, hey, we all have this common interest, like, and it, like I said, it really kind of, it tests you, mentally and physically. So you kind of really learn a lot about people, when you're in the backcountry or you're sharing, a whitetail camp. Like, you learn a lot about not just yourself, but this, close group of people that you've been friends with for a long time. And like I said, it validates like why you're friends with them, but then it also kind of exposes like, like I've been friends with them a long time, but maybe this isn't somebody that I really need to be like have in my inner circle. And it's not that they're a bad person, it's just you kind of realize your values don't align, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot
And
there.
there's some that like I've learned, like especially on Western hunts or anything that's physically and mentally demanding over a period of time. I have a very select few people that I will go on those hunts with, unless I get to know them really well. And it's always a risk, like when you go to do that for the first time. And I've got like my cousin and my brother and one of my good buddies, like that I grew up with, we hunt really well together, and we can find laughter and make fun of each other when we're in bad situations, which is how I deal with bad situations. Is
Same.
making jokes that don't really make sense at the time. And that's kind of how I deal with it. But if someone's constantly negative, it's like, man, that's draining, that I don't want to be around that person. And I can't stand that. Like, it drives me up a wall.
And I always think about it. And again, like, that's kind of the thing with like guiding, is because like you are exposed to so many people from so many different areas and different lifestyles. And it's like, there's guys where like I would love to share a deer camp with them, right? Like, any day of the week, I would love to share deer camp with them, but I can literally maybe count on one hand the number of guys that like I would go to Alaska with or go into the backcountry with, because one, like, you have to be able to trust them and like know that they are going to look out for you. Because if something happens to you, like, you're relying on them to like make sure you get out of there, right? But like, yeah, when you have that one person that's just always negative, like if they're negative when things get hard, like how are they in other aspects of their life, right? And that's just not like, and I think that's like one of the biggest things I learned with like Dialed is like, you learn who's truly on your side and who were all just like friends with you for whatever reason. Like, you learn a lot about like who you can trust, like who do you really want in your inner circle. And between hunting and Dialed, like I've learned like a lot of the people that I thought were my friends really weren't my friends, and that's a tough reality to face, because like when you've been friends with someone for so long, it's hard to cut that off, right? But you get to the point where like, and I say it all the time, like if I meet someone or like somebody's trying to get to know me, like if they don't provide any sort of like positive like energy, or they don't really provide any value into my life, like, again, nothing against you, but it's not somebody I want in my inner circle, right? So you learn as you get older, like it's not about quantity, it's about quality, right? And again, I think hunting it's a great measurement, or a great tool to measure, like, is this somebody that I really want to be part of my life? And also like, because it's like, if you're in my inner circle, like I'll take a bullet for you, like I will stand up for you, like you're my homie, but if you're not in my inner circle, like, I don't like, I really could give two shits about you, so but I think a big part of that is just like you get older and you learn, and
Oh yeah.
like it's just part of maturing.
I've learned so much. Like, I feel like to start out, like, I'm a pretty trusting person of people. Like, when I meet them, I'm pretty like, oh, like, this is awesome. And I wouldn't say I've become jaded, but like I've become more guarded. Yeah. Calloused when it comes, especially like in this, in this industry, and it's this way in any industry. So from the business side, and then just from a hunting partner side, like exactly what you said. But I'd learned as things started getting better for me in business and hunting, then all of a sudden I had all these new friends that were coming in, and like some of them have become really good friends. They were there for good reasons. And there were others that I felt like were just trying to take advantage and ride a wave. And that if I were to do something wrong or people hated me the next day, that they'd be gone. Like
100%.
Like disappear. And I don't know. I don't like to think that. I try to still treat everybody good, but I'm not going to give extra time. Like, your time is so valuable to sit there and talk to someone and go out of your way to I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, but I'm not going to spend time with people that don't mean anything to me. Like, right. I want to have that, cause I meet so many people and I love meeting new people, but I want to have that quality. Like you said,
For
you
sure.
put that in such a good way to do it. And, going back to one other thing you said real quick about, like, as far as success for yourself, especially when you're younger and you're trying to do something, like, I've felt this pressure, like in my shoes, of having a podcast, especially when I'm doing stuff that's informational about, say, deer hunting and stuff. It's like, okay, you feel this pressure to be successful in these different avenues. And to an extent, there has to be some validity to, like, if you're speaking on something, you better be doing that thing.
You got to back it up.
You got to be able to back it up. So that's 100% true. But I've also, one thing, I went to Alberta. Sitka had sent me there back in 2022 and 2018. But in 2022, I was there. Jim Holt Jr. was the outfitter and that he had up there for whitetail hunting. And he's a legend in the game, but he hasn't, at that point, he hadn't shot a whitetail in like 8 years. And, I was talking to him about it, and I was like, what's the deal? Like, do you feel like any pressure because you're known for this guy that shoots these giant deer and you haven't shot anything in a little while? And he had said, he's like, Beau, he's like, I want something that's truly exceptional, and I want to shoot him at 8 steps. And he's like, and if that's not in the cards, I'm fine. And he's like, I can show you. And he showed videos on his phone of deer that anybody in the world would shoot that are big deer. But like, he's like, I just enjoy watching them. He's like, I have nothing to prove to anybody. I know I can do it. And going through that. And he, he gave me some life advice that I don't think he was planning on doing. But I thought about that. And it's like, when you're confident in what you're doing, he's like, this is what I enjoy doing. And hunting isn't meant to be something that is a dick measuring contest, right? That it needs to, to be something that you want to do and fulfills you. And I enjoy pushing myself and challenging myself and trying to have bigger and better goals. But like this year, I've been having one of the best seasons I've had. And I went to a couple of other states and I had chances shooting bucks that I would normally be happy to shoot. But I was like, I didn't feel the want to grab the bow and do it. It's like, I've already had a good season. Like, I'm not just to say, oh, this is the best season ever, I've killed 4 bucks. It's like, I don't know. I think you kind of have to check with yourself there on things and see who you really are and what you want out of things. Because at the end of the day, I talked about this with another buddy the other day. Nobody remembers the deer you shot 2 weeks after you shot it, or the elk that you shot, or anything, unless it's like a truly like world record type. No one cares. Like, you get some congratulations and stuff, but they forget about it come January the next year. There's so many things hitting with social media and the news cycle's so quick. Nobody remembers that stuff. So You're not doing it for anybody other than yourself. Right. And that was a big learning thing.
Yeah. And I mean, like, even for me, it's like, it goes back to like your reasons, like, why do you hunt? Right. And, again, like me, like not being on social media, not like if I ever kill anything, there's like 5 people that find out, and because like, one, that's not why I do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like, if somebody asked me like, hey, how'd your season go? Right. Which I think like everybody's just used to me not hunting. So nobody even asks like, how'd your season go? Cause there's like, oh, Scott probably didn't hunt. But, you know, somebody asks, like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I killed a good bull or I killed a good buck, whatever, you know, but like going back to like, you know, like we always say, like, you know, like when I'm guiding, like, don't let the size dictate the experience. Let the experience dictate the experience. Right. So it's like, to your point, like, you know, at our ages, like we've learned a lot, right? Whether it was from other people or like our own experiences, like you become more and more refined. But that's the beautiful thing about archery and like hunting is you're never done learning. You know what I mean? So it's like, do you need like those success photos to kind of validate and confirm that like you know what you're doing? There's probably something to it. But at the same time, like I don't do it for the validation from anybody else. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and it, you know, going back to like watching somebody else like kill their first elk or kill their first mule deer, like that, like if we were successful, then yeah, hey, things worked out. But like we also got lucky. You know what I mean? You can't validate like you as a badass hunter because you get lucky, right? But what validates it is the fact that like you found the animal, you put a plan together, you executed the plan, and it worked, right? But like to your point, you know, how many deer or animals do you have an opportunity on and you don't take it? Like that animal is dead. If you wanted to kill it, that animal was dead. So you already beat him. So like that to me, like you have way more of those experiences than kills. But those are the experiences that I think validate you as a hunter, is the fact that, you know, you put a plan into play, it worked out, it just wasn't the right animal, right? But I mean, that's hunting, right? That's what makes us hunters. But like 9 times out of 10, we still get beat, right? And
100%.
I mean, how many times you get back to camp and you're like, I suck at hunting. You know what I mean?
Oh, like every day.
I know. So it's like, really, like, does it matter if we're good or not? Because it's like, hey, like a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while, right? Every once in a while you get lucky. Every once in a while an opportunity falls in your lap. Like, and that's like, I get really annoyed with like the groups where it's like, oh, you hunt private land. Like, I'm a public land hunter. It's like, that's cool. Like, more props to you. I am not a public land hunter. Like, I never claim to be, I never will be. Like, I enjoy hunting private land where I have control and it's me and the animals. I'm not fighting with, you know, 20 other people out there. Like, there's people that enjoy that. I don't enjoy that. Like, that's not what makes hunting enjoyable to me. But like, I just think that there's so many people, and I'm going on a soapbox here, but there's just so many people that try to be somebody, you know, because of social media, because of like just technology. Like they try so hard to be somebody rather than just like, man, just enjoy hunting. Like just enjoy it, right? Like we're all like, any day this could all be taken away from us. So enjoy it while we have it. You know what I mean? And instead of like letting hunting divide people, like we should all be like rallying around it, right? So it's like, again, like let the experiences dictate it. Don't, like, who cares? Like, I mean, I don't know. Like I always think about like back in the day, like when I first started hunting and like, again, growing up in northern Wisconsin, like we didn't know quality deer management. I mean, we were hunting big woods where we baited everything. We baited the shit out of deer up there, but that's how we hunted. And we would kill, you know, the first buck that we saw because like we didn't know any better, you know. But it's like how much fun that was though back in the day. And like it was, we didn't realize it at the time, but it was more about all of us, like, you know, my dad, my brother, my uncle, all of us being together and like sharing that like bond over hunting. But like at the end of the day, you know, we are hunting to kill something, right? But it's like, I mean, how many little Bascarac 8-pointers that we kill where we were all just stoked out of our minds. And then now we're all chasing quality and it kind of like has taken the fun out of it a little bit. Right. I mean, it's good that we've matured because like now it's like not necessarily about size. It's about killing a mature animal. right? Because,
Yeah.
from the conservation side, all that stuff that we read online and see on TV. But it's like going back to the old days. It's like, man, I miss those days where it was just like, I don't know. It just seems like, and like I said, me personally, I feel like and again, going back to like when we started Dialed, like I kind of lost my why I hunt, right? Because I got so caught up in I got to kill something big. I got to kill something big, and it just kind of ruined it to where now, like, I don't know. There's a lot. You realize like there's a lot more to it than just killing something.
Oh yeah.
And
I'm sure with guiding like that, with you getting to see these, say the clients that come out there, maybe there are some that come every year. Well, I don't know. I guess with Wyoming, you have to draw it's tags there.
Yeah.
But as far as people coming there, a lot of them maybe are, and you can answer this, but their only time that they'll get to do that, or they'll only get to do it a few times in their life, and they're just super stoked to be there and have that opportunity.
I would say that is the cool thing about hunting is it brings, or like you get to meet people from all walks of life. Like you get guys where like, spending 10 grand in elk hunt is nothing to them, right? Like that's like their 10th hunt of the year, right? Like, but then you get the people where, they come out to shoot an antelope and they've been saving up for that for a decade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I almost rather be with those people because to them, it's the experience. Like, how many people that come from like Pennsylvania, Michigan, like the Midwest that have never hunted out west before, and they are just in awe. Like they never realized like this existed. You know what I mean? And they're always asking questions about like, what's that? Like, why do antelope do that? Whatever. And it's like this, instead of like taking this, like, again, they are there to kill something. That is what they're paying us for. Right. But
yep.
It's more now this is an opportunity for me to teach them, and have it be a learning experience to where it is not so focused on the killing. And that is the best part about guiding, is like almost being like a mentor, and like, especially when it comes to just shooting, you know what I mean? Like, not that we know more than them, but like we kind of do because we live it every day. So we know what works, what doesn't work, but it's literally an opportunity again to bond over this experience and being able to teach them stuff that they probably never would have been able to learn. And then if we kill something, that's the cherry on top. And like, we are very successful. Like, I mean, it's this year, I think we were just about 100% success. So like, that is the goal at the end of the day, is to be successful. But again, that is just the cherry on top. And like at the end of it all, when you like talk to them, like, did you have a good time? Oh yeah. Like had an amazing time. Just overall was a great experience. That's what I want to hear. Right. And any hunt, and again, it's so easy to get wrapped up on the success. It's like anytime, like I go hunting personally, I like almost expect not to kill something because I really don't care. For me, it's about having a good time, like spending time with good people. And like, if I kill something, that's great. Like, yeah, you're a little disappointed you don't, sure. Like nobody wants to fail, but at the same time, if I'm having a good time, I don't care if I kill something, and I think a lot of people, like they have that mindset, again, like if we're not successful, you do kind of see the disappointment on their face, but they're like, man, I had a great time. Like, thanks, like that's what it's about, but it's the people that I have a hard time with are the ones that are like, if we don't kill on the first day, then they start getting a bad attitude, right? Like, oh, we're not going to get it done. And it's like, man, we still have 4 more days. Like today we were just like window shopping. Like
they're wild animals, man.
Right.
Like it's not like because you're going, the thing I always hate about the idea of like, you think you're going with an outfitter, there's people like, oh, you should just be expected to kill something like right off the bat. And it's like, yeah, you're going to have that knowledge, or maybe it's access to a property or whatever it is to help increase your odds of success, but it's not it's not a guarantee.
No,
and not even close.
And I think a lot of people do have that expectation that because it is a guided hunt, we only hunt for the most, we only hunt private land. They're like, oh, this should be a layup. And that is the one thing I will say, like guiding has taught me is like you learn how little control you have, right? Like even though we're hunting private land and we put all this time into scouting and like stuff, like you like the odds are still stacked against you. Like we can't control the animals, we can't control predators, we can't control the ranchers, we can't control the weather, we can't control, you know, the guy that decides to come out at 7:30 in the morning to check water or check cattle and blows a draw out or whatever. Like you realize just how little control you have, but then it's like taking all the information you need, like, and trying just to put the odds in your favor as much as you can. But at the end of the day, it still takes luck, right? Like as good as we all think we are, we're not that good and we still need luck. And sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't, you know, and that's just the reality of it. But again, if we can have a good time while we're getting our dicks kicked in, it's still a good time, you know, like, you know, and I think again, that's just like the part that I enjoy is like, you know, if it's freezing cold or it's windy or the weather's shitty, I'm suffering just as much as you are, but we're suffering together. And it's almost like you made a comment earlier, like that's where like I kind of turn everything into a joke because it's like we're miserable. Why let it like don't let it beat you? Like have fun with it, you know? And like in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'd rather be doing anything than this right now. Like I'd rather be laying on the couch right now with a cup of coffee watching Step Brothers. But you know what? Here we are. So let's make the best of it, you know? And so I mean, again, it just goes back to like, I mean, hunting can just teach you so much, you know, just I mean, it's amazing how much you can like take from hunting and apply to your own life. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Oh yeah.
how many times like have you been out west and you're like staring at a canyon and you're like, God, that is a long ways away. That is gnarly as shit. But I bet you nobody would go up in there. I'm like, I want to go there because if it's something that somebody else isn't going to do, I want to do it, you know? But then if you can do that there, why can't you do it in business or in like your personal life? You know what I mean? So again, it's like, it's easy to get wrapped up into the kill, 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 success, success, success. But if you actually dissect it, like the best part about hunting is like taking stuff that like you learn and then applying it in your own life, you know? And it's like if I can hike 18 miles in a day to look for sheds, why can't I hike 2 miles every morning before work, you know? Or like, you know, it's just, yeah. So
and you know, it's something I've done with myself mindset wise for like hunts, especially hard hunts or something that you have to do, or you're doing it for days on end, is I always tell myself, I was like, if I do everything right, you know, do the things I need to, not take a shortcut on access, say I'm going to hunt whitetail somewhere or hunting elk. Like if I do this thing right, it might be this one time that I have to do it. And you just say that every day as you're going through it and treating it like this is the last time that you're going to do that. When I first started doing spot and stock hunts, that was kind of my thing where I'd be like, man, I don't know where this buck went. I thought he was somewhere in here. I'm hungry. I don't have any water. I'm going to go back to the glassing knob. Then I'd be like, what? Okay. So I'm going to walk all the way back up there just to find another deer to try to do the same thing and probably lose him again. It's like, no, I know he's in here. I just can't see him right now. I just need to be patient and treat it. And it took experience to learn that, but I don't know what it was about this year. I just have felt so much peace and not putting pressure on myself of just like, hey, I'm going to try to do everything I can in my control and then let the 5% of luck or whatever I need just do those things and maybe it'll work out. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And I don't know. It's been a lot more enjoyable. I'll tell you that.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Cause like, I think the same way when it comes to like business, you know, and it's like making like decisions. And it's like, how many times have you like you said, like you watch a deer, you watch an elk go into like a, you know, like a draw and you lose them, but you're like, I know they're there. And it's like, I could sit here for another 3 to 4 hours, wait them out. I could leave, like you said, refuel on water, food, come back. But then it's like that saying, why would you leave fish to find fish? Right. But it's like, if you're just patient and if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, you know, but it's the same thing like in business. Like, you know, if you need to make a decision on something, it's like, why rush into making a decision? right? Why not just sit on it until you know, like, again, you take the information that you know and you make the best decision you can. And if you don't know what the best decision is, then don't do anything, like just sit and like you said, like that animal may step out in 20 minutes or it might be 4 hours, but they're going to come out eventually. But it's the same thing. Like if you just sit and like wait, you'll figure out like what the right decision is. So
Yeah.
but it like patience is a huge part of just hunting and life and business. And there's times like, and I will say like Taylor and I struggle with that because it's like, we just want to go. Like, we just want to go. But it's like, wait, like, let's just take a minute. Let's think about this, check with a few other people, like, get some more information, and then make a decision. Because, like, and I mean, with hunting, when you make quick decisions, 99% of the time they don't work out, right? Like, if you rush, they don't work out. And it's the same thing in life and business, right? So it's amazing how much, like,
there's so many parallels.
Right.
Like there's so many parallels. The thing that I'd said that I feel like one of my pros when it comes to the business side of what I do is the patience game that I've learned from hunting. Like, I can sit in a tree from dark to dark for a week straight in the same tree waiting for the right deer because I know it's a good spot. And it's like in business, like I know if I do these things day after day after day after day for a year to 2 to 3 to 4 years, like eventually, with trying to get a little better as you go, not doing the exact same thing, but trying to just being consistent, that eventually things are gonna work. And most people don't have that patience and give up too early.
Right.
And that's always been my thing. If I can just outlast, someone, whether it's in business or just outlast being in a tree for a deer, like that, my odds of success go up.
Well, and I think the biggest thing for me, like this year, whether it was in life, in business, or in hunting, I was always so terrified of like making a mistake, right? Like especially with like hunting, I'm always so terrified of like making the wrong move and then ruining the hunt, right? And it's kind of the same thing with like business. Like I'm always afraid, like if I make this decision, is it the wrong decision, right? But I think this year, like that was my biggest takeaway from just the year overall, is like you are going to make mistakes, like, and that's okay. Like stop being so afraid of messing up that stock or making the wrong decision, because you're not always going to make the right move, and it's going to happen. So like in the past, like I would make decisions where like, and again, like going back to the whole guiding thing, like, if it's a 4-day hunt and we're on day 2 and we haven't killed anything, I start feeling the pressure. And then that's when I start losing patience and I start making really stupid mistakes because I'm trying to push it. Right. And it's like, because I feel like you feel that pressure, and it's like, we're halfway through the hunt, like we got to kill something, but it's like, rather than push it and just take a minute, like you still have 2 more days. Right. So why am I rushing things, or why am I making foolish decisions that I know better? And, but it's like, well, like maybe this will work out. If there's a maybe in there, it's probably not going to work out, but it's like, just relax, man. Just like enjoy the experience. And like, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. Like, it's the same thing, like in life and in business. Like, don't rush it. Like, if you're not sure, then don't do it. Like there's always tomorrow, you know what I mean? So it's just, and again, going back to, I think, like I always like think back, it's like, man, if only like I kind of would have had the realization of like wanting to start my own business like 10 years ago, think how much further ahead we would be. But the reality is like, I wasn't mature enough 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, same with hunting, like the older we get, the more mature we get. And like, I think that's just a big part of like all of it is it's just like having the maturity to like realizing like you are going to make mistakes, like you are going to fuck up, but like there's not really any mistake you can make. Like, well, there is, but it's like, that's totally opposite end of the spectrum. But there's not really any mistake you can make where it's just completely going to destroy you. You know what I mean? Like, there's always tomorrow. So like, yeah, there's definitely, like you said, a lot of parallels there, but it's also like having the maturity to understand it and realize it.
Well, and there's so, especially when I first started Western hunting, and early on, I mean, I started the podcast because I wanted to learn more about Western hunting, something that I didn't know much about.
Yeah.
I'd whitetail hunted my whole life, and I wanted to talk to successful people, and I was learning, and it was like there was this common correlation that it takes a lot of time and experience to have success. And it's like, there's not any shortcuts as putting in those reps to be able to get there. But I'd get frustrated for a while when I'd hear people be like, oh, well, you just feel it, you feel when you should not make a decision. And I didn't totally understand what that meant until I got in a lot of reps. I, spent 21 days in a season out west, and then every year going and doing more and more and more. And then all of a sudden I'd be in on a herd of elk, and it's like, okay, what do I do here? It's like, well, from this experience, I screwed up when I did this, so maybe I play it more safe or do that. And you just start to, I think, like when it comes to hunting, I think it's this way for business too. There's not really there's not a right answer.
There's
like
no
this
recipe.
There's no recipe. It's just using your own experiences and what you've gained and trying to make the best decision based on those experiences and sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't.
Sometimes it's the right decision, sometimes it's the wrong decision. I mean, how many times, like, especially whitetail hunting, like, for me, like, I can be one of the most indecisive people because I'm afraid of making the wrong decision. Right. So that holds me back a lot. But then, like, there's times where, like, I'll be walking into a stand, and instead of just taking my time and like kind of hunting your way in, I'm just like, I just want to get there. And then halfway in, I look and there's white tails running everywhere. I'm like, well, that was stupid. Like, I knew better. But I just threw caution to the wind and wasn't thinking, right? Or like hunting out west, how many times, like, I've gone to, like, put a stock on a mule deer, and like, I make a decision to go this way instead of going around. And then next thing you know, there they are staring at me, 80 yards away. And I'm like, well, that was stupid. And, I think another, like, flip side to that is, like, I was never good about this until, like, probably like 5 years ago, is like owning up to those mistakes too. So it's like, if I have a hunter and I blow a stalk because of a decision I made, I'll flat out look at him and be like, that's my fault. Like, stupid idea. Like, not sure what I was thinking there. Like, and like, same thing, like, in business, like, I'll make a decision that I think is good for us, and then a week later find out, well, that was a dumb idea. Like, what was I thinking, there? But it's like owning up to those mistakes, because if you don't own up to them, you'll never learn from them, And again, I think that was a big thing for me this year, is just being okay with, like, messing up. You know what I mean? Because that's how you learn. And, like, especially this year, like, it was probably the worst year I've ever had with, like, paying attention to, like, wind direction, like, which just seems so elementary, but it's like, I would check the wind and be like, all right, it's perfect. And then get halfway to where I need to go. And then all of a sudden I get there and I realize the wind is completely wrong, and there's every animal in the county running away from us. I'm like, you idiot. Like, what were you thinking? But it's just paying attention to the details, because, like, in everything we do, the details matter, but you can get so blindsided and just kind of throw caution to the wind, and it comes back and bites you in the ass, but you're like, stupid. Okay. Mental note, don't do that again, So.
Yeah. I think it's good not to totally beat yourself up. I remember my dad always has told me, he's like, I'd make a mistake that was just like, I've done this before. And he's just like, sometimes you end up having to learn lessons
The hard
multiple
way.
times as much as the hard way. And especially if you have like success for a while, that's when you start having a lot of success in a certain area, whatever it might be, that's when you start taking shortcuts because you
get
think
comfortable.
you're Billy Badass. Like you think
Right.
you got it all figured out. And then that's when you make those mistakes that were the things that you were doing right to get to the point of being more successful, wind direction, things like that, like all of us do that, like run in those scenarios and be like, duh, like obviously that was going to work, or obviously that on this slope that the sun was going to go down behind it and the thermals are going to pull down versus go in the direction they were 2 hours earlier. That was,
it's easy.
yeah,
It's easy to get comfortable and think like you're better than the animals. And it's like, you're not. Like,
No.
we never will be, And so like you do get like, and I fall into it all the time where like you try to take the easy route because, you think you're that good. The easy route generally never works out, but like you start cutting corners and next thing you know, like you kind of got a real shit show on your hands and then you pay the price later on, So, again, it's like, I keep going back to like the maturing part, but then there's also times that you're humbled and you realize like you still have some growing to do, or you still have some maturing to do. And, I think that's kind of like the exciting part is just knowing like that's never going to end, whether you've been in business 5 years or 40 years, or you've been hunting 1 year or 40 years, like you're never done learning. You're never done making mistakes. And, like you stand in a room with a guy where like the majority of us have decades of experience. And then you have that one guy that's a newbie. Like, yeah, we have a little bit more experience under our belts, but when it comes down to it, like, I mean, you're kind of like, you're not really any better than that less experienced person because like hunting, business, life, it always has a way of humbling you, And, I think the big thing, especially like with business, is like when you take those hits or you have like those, decisions that didn't pan out. And same with hunting. Like, can you pick yourself up and dust yourself off and just get right back at it? It's really easy to get discouraged. Like how many times have you like, been hunting like one buck and you see them like day after day after day? You finally are getting closed in at them, and then either you whiff the shot or you do something stupid and it blows it, right? It's really easy to just throw in the towel and be like, screw it, like I'm done. But like, that's kind of like, that's the difference in my opinion. What like separates like good hunters from like not good hunters is like, can you pick yourself back up and just keep after it? And it's the same thing with business, right? Like, yes, like you come up with a new product or, you do a new social media campaign and it doesn't work out. So what? Like tomorrow's a new day. Like, let's get back after it. And, going back to like Dialed, I think that's like one thing that really separates us from like a lot of other just companies is like, it's really hard to like keep us down. Like we have had our fair share of hard times and, like failures and, not necessarily the best decisions, but we learn from it and we just keep moving forward, and again, I think that's what kind of separates, like, in my opinion, like the badass hunters from like just a regular hunter is, can you make it through the hard times and just keep grinding, and like, there are times where you do have to realize like, I've been chasing this deer for a month now. It may not happen. It just wasn't meant to be. And that's what keeps you coming back.
I remember my buddy Johnny had told me years ago, it was about 10 years ago, I was chasing this buck and I was chasing after him. I missed him 1 year and 2 more years I was chasing him. And he said to me afterwards, he's like, I knew you were never going to kill that buck. He's just one of those deer that you're just never going to kill. I'm like, well, I'm glad you didn't tell me that in the meantime, because that would have really broke me.
Yep.
But what you said about Dialed, and you guys, so when you guys first started, 2022, I believe, was the first year, right? Was it 21?
We officially launched November of 21.
But the actual sights didn't really come into circulation until 22. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah. Summer of 22.
I remember when when I got my first sight, and it was a prototype before the other ones were there, and I had some issues with it, and I was just like, but what kept me wanting to continually use it was I believed in what you guys were doing. I had met you at that point. I'd known Taylor and Jordan for a while, and I was like, good people that are working at companies and really trying to do things, everybody's going to have like things that don't work exactly how they want, especially with prototypes. That's just the nature of the beast. And I was like, I want to see this through and try to give my feedback, which it was all things that you guys already knew to at that point anyways, but trying to go through it and to see where the Pruf is at today is like, I freaking love it.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I started using it back then and all the way through, there was no contractual obligation. I could use whatever site I wanted to, but like I believed in what you guys were doing and still do today. As far as like when I see companies that are doing that kind of stuff, I think it's pretty awesome. And also I remember one time you and I were sitting at a bar after a TAC event one night or something. We were getting into it a little bit, and then you started telling me your story, your personal story with Dialed and risking it all. And it's like, dude, someone that's going to do that is like, they're all in on this. They're not trying to half-ass it or just do it for whatever reason. So do you mind, giving a little bit of that?
Yeah. And I mean, so, going back to like, that 2021, 2022 timeframe, like, I always like look at that time frame and be like, if we can make it through that, like those days, we can make it through anything. Because it was a very exciting time frame, but also a very scary time frame, right? Because and again, going back to like what we were just talking about, we made a lot of decisions in the beginning that we thought were right that turned out not to be, and like a lot of time, a lot of money was wasted on like parts and components, ideas that just weren't going to work, but, when we first launched, it was very easy for everybody to like doubt us. And like, I get it. You know what I mean? It was a brand new kind of site idea. We didn't even really know what we were doing. We were kind of figuring, like our famous like analogy is like, we were building an airplane in the air. Like we were trying to figure out things as we went, which isn't necessarily the best way to do it. But so, yeah, I mean, the odds were stacked against us. And there was multiple times where like, it would have been very easily to just walk away and be like, hey, we tried, this isn't going to work. Right. But we just kept after it. And, as hard as it was, getting feedback from, people like you and, customers, we knew we would figure it out. It just was going to take time, and like, it's just part of like the business life cycle too. Like your first product isn't always going to be a home run and it's not going to be perfect. But the one thing I think we did very well is like, we are very transparent about kind of where we were with everything. And again, like there was a lot of like shit talking about us, and rightfully so, like the Arxos had its flaws. We never hid that, like we knew it didn't necessarily turn out the way we were hoping, but it was the best we could do with what we had. But we literally took like those couple years of the Arxos and just learned, and again, it would have been very easy just to give up, throw in the towel, be like, this isn't going to work. But we just kept after it, and I think, again, that's like, you look at our whole team, that's just kind of our mentality is like, when the odds are against us, when people are doubting us, that's when we thrive, because like we just stay after it. But, yeah, like starting Dialed, I mean, it, like I made the comment earlier, it was like, I'll never forget, like when we first kind of started talking about it, there was the fear of what if that doesn't work out? Like, because I mean, and even to this day, like Dialed is owned by Taylor and Jordan and I, and it was started with our own money. And like, I mean, I've told the story hundreds of times, but like I sold my house, I sold my truck, cashed in all my 401ks, all my savings, like literally every dollar that I could scrape together. That's what we started Dialed with. And, Taylor did the same thing. He had to put in a certain amount of money as an owner. Jordan had to do the same thing. But so for us, like quitting was never an option. Like I've always said, and I know Taylor and Jordan felt the same way, like if Dialed was gonna go down, I'm going down with it. Like I'm not walking away from this, because we truly believed in what we wanted to do and we believed in what we were doing. We just had to go through the paces to like get to the proof, and get to where we are today. So yeah, like there was no, like in talking with like other people that have started their own businesses, and like and again, going back to like parallels of hunting, when things get hard, it's really easy to just walk away, rather than just dig in deeper and put in even more energy and more time and business, more money, but so, yeah, I mean, Dialed was never like it was never like a side hustle for me. It was always like, this is what I'm going to do. And if it works out, great. If it doesn't, like I said, I'm going down with the ship, and I'll pick myself up and figure it out after the fact. So, but I think that's the one thing I've learned is like, and I've always kind of been that way. Like, I mean, ever since I was a little kid, like if I'm going to do something, I'm 100% in. I never really half-ass anything. It's either I'm in or I'm out. And, so again, like with starting Dialed, we had to be all in, and like we're very lucky with just kind of like where we were in like all of our lives, like Jordan, Taylor, like they're married, have families. So it was a huge risk for them, right? Because they have a family that they got to support, but they also had captured, right? So like they were protected, because if Dialed didn't work out, yeah, they lose a little bit of money and a little bit of time, but it wasn't life-changing for them. Where for me, if Dialed failed, that is a epic change in my life, especially like where I'm 40 now. So I was 35 when we started, or 36 when we started. It's like that changes a lot, right? That changes the trajectory of your life for the next 10 to 20 years. So it was terrifying, but again, like I always think back to like, it was just like the stars aligned with the fact that like I had these two really good friends of mine that believed in the same thing. They're wired the same way as I am, where like, we're going to put everything we have into this. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But failure really was never an option for us. Like, and again, kind of going through everything we went through, I think that's like a testament to just like that mindset. Like, again, it would have been very easy for us to just pack everything up, close the doors, cut our losses. We all go our separate ways. But at the end of the day, none of us wanted that. Like we truly wanted Dialed to succeed and be what it is we want it to be. And, we're still not anywhere close to that, but, at least like you're never out of the woods, right? Like every day is it's a fight, but every day, like we're so much more experienced and callous now to where like, the things that used to bother me in the beginning, I don't even like think about it now. Cause it's like, the bigger you get, the more you grow, your problems just get bigger, they get more expensive, but you just become used to it. Like you just kind of accept like this is just part of it and it's not for everybody, like, and that was the thing when we first started. Like I knew nothing about owning a business. Like I had some, business experience, like just, learning throughout like my career, but like I know nothing about owning a business, especially when it comes to like the actual business end of it, like dealing with attorneys and CPAs and bankers. And like, I had no clue, but I truly looked at it as a way to grow like personally and just becoming, more experienced, more wiser. And I can honestly say like I've matured more in the last 5 years than I have in the last 20. Like owning your own business and it, like, I mean, Dialed literally dictates everything I do. Like my whole life is built around Dialed. Like my free time, like, you know, like being able to go and do stuff, like Dialed controls all that. Because if there's stuff that needs to be done with Dialed, like that's priority, you know. But it's also like you become addicted to it too, to where like Taylor and I, every morning we call each other and our first comment is, well, what fires are we putting out today? Right. Like we always say, like, we're not business owners, we're firefighters, because every day you're putting out a fire. But then when you have a day, you know, like, especially kind of like this time of year, you know, like waters have kind of settled a little bit, and, you know, I don't want to say it's easy, but you just don't have as many fires as when it's the heat of the busy season. But when you have a day where there's no fire to put out, it's like, what's wrong? Like something's wrong. Like, why isn't something gone wrong today? You know? So like you just get so used to like the day-to-day grind and the day-to-day battles. And, you know, like I have never been someone that dealt with like stress and anxiety very well. Like when I was younger, I did not handle stress. I got anxiety really bad. And where now, like I kind of said before, like I don't really stress about much, you know, like whether it's the money side of things or, you know, like the product side of things or like just other aspects of my life or like hunting. I really don't worry about much anymore because I know if we just keep our heads down and keep after it, like we'll figure it out, you know? And again, like I'm very lucky, and I've said this like a lot, but it's the honest God truth. Like I'm very lucky to have the team that I have, and hopefully those guys feel the same way about me. But you know, but
what I heard.
I know. Well, it wouldn't surprise me, you know.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I'm sure they're just like, yeah, we have our other, you know, retard owner that just holds us down. Like, yeah, that's me. But no, I'm very lucky to have the team that I am, and like, you know, like I don't know everything, and it's great to have, and even just like our external team. Like, I mean, like how many times have we like, hey, Beau, what do you think about this? Or like, we're going to send you this site. Like, we'd love to get your thoughts, right? Like we rely heavily, like we are very team oriented because like you can't do it on your own, you know, and there's definitely people that have built very successful businesses on their own, but I don't want that either. You know, it's kind of like the hunting thing. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to do this on my own. Like, yeah, there's days where it's like, I mean, it's just like any relationship where it's like, fuck, I wish I didn't have other people I had to deal with, you know, but I'm also like, I couldn't do this without those other people. So, yeah, going back to kind of like the initial thing, like going all in, it like we had to, like Dialed wouldn't be what it is today if we, you know, didn't put all the chips in the center of the table.
Yeah, and I can totally see that. So, and I've talked about this a little bit before on here, but not to you specifically, but my other company, Timber Ninja, which is a mobile hunting brand, that's where we had a TAC when we were across there. When I got on board, I wasn't one of the founders, but I got brought on as an owner partway through, helping out what ended up being so much more than I thought from a side gig perspective, and realized like it's really difficult if you're not all in to be able to make this thing happen. And then had a hurricane hit the facility and all these things that just put us down. And then this year, revamping, was able to bring in another partner that was very active and knew more on some of the business front to be able to help us, and then being able to hire some people that could give it all their effort into certain areas to really, and it's helped so much, and to be able to see it. But it was one of those things where I didn't know that from the beginning. But also what you were saying about the business partner thing is having people that have their own strengths. And it's like, if you and I were like the exact same person, and we're best buddies and we have the same skills and everything, well, probably not the best business partners, because you need to have each having your own space and being able to, you know, obviously be cross-functional, but having your own strengths to supplement each other to be able to go through. At least that's been my experience from being around business. And like, for anybody that's out there and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, but anybody that's out there is like, oh, I wish I could do that or wanting to do that. I think the biggest thing, like, especially if you don't have like that circle to begin with, is be somebody that people want to be with. And that's, gaining those skills and being to be able to learn it. Like, you, through your lifetime of skills and working in the archery space, you gained a set of skill set that was helpful to Jordan and Taylor, and then vice versa.
100%.
They would help. Like, that's that. I mean, it's for me, looking on the outside, looking in, it's like, it's obvious why you guys are doing successful. You each have your own avenues, and obviously, again, help each other out when necessary, but you have your own set of skills.
For sure.
But
well, and that's it is hard. I mean, like I said, it's any like relationships, whether it's friendships or like significant others, like, you're always going to have those days where you're just not vibing, and like, I would say like Taylor and I are definitely similar as far as like our personalities and just like our mindsets compared to like Jordan. But that's where like we made a good team, because when Taylor and I were button heads, Jordan was like our voice of reason, and he'd be like, I think you guys are thinking about this wrong, and then both Taylor and I would be like, well, shit, like, yeah, but it was because we were both on this, like, we were thinking about it the same way. So then we were colliding, and it took Jordan to kind of be the mediator. But like, it is hard, because I mean, like, like I said in the beginning, like Jordan and Taylor, I started off as like really, really good friends, and like, and we still are. I mean, they're kind of more like brothers to me than friends. But at the end of the day, like, we're not brothers, we're not friends, we're business partners, right? But that's how it has to be, because like, you got to be able to take the emotions out of it, right? Because like, I'm going to say things that like Taylor and Jordan aren't necessarily going to hear, and they're going to say things that I don't necessarily want to hear, but you have to be able to like hear them out and have those difficult conversations. But if you have emotion attached to it, it makes it even harder. But at the end of the day, like, and Taylor has said this, and I have said this, like, every day I trust those guys more than I did yesterday, because I truly believe they want what's best for Dialed. They want what's best for me. And it's the same thing, right? Like, I want to see Dialed be as successful as possible, because I want to see them succeed, and I want what's best for them. So, I've always said, like, Dialed isn't about me. It isn't about Taylor. It isn't about Jordan. It's about the people inside of our four walls, about the people outside our walls, and it's about Dialed, right? It's not about yeah, we all have like our personal, like I want to see Dialed be $100 million company someday. I never have to work again, and I can go on any hunt I want to. Personally, selfishly, I want that, but I also want that for them. I want it for our employees. Like, so, that's where, like, again, going back to like our team, I know every single person on our team is going to fight just as hard as I'm fighting, right? And they hopefully feel the same way about me. So it's like, it's easy to get caught up into like the relationship and like, like, oh, Taylor's just being difficult because he wants what he wants. But it's like, if he truly feels that passionate about that, like, I have to try to figure out why, and then like, at the end of the day, I have to believe that like, he truly just wants what's best for Dialed. Right. So, and like, I've seen that with like buddies that have, businesses with partners, and, they get butthurt because, there's some, hard feelings amongst the ownership group. And I'm like, yeah, that's part of having business partners, right? Like, you're not always going to be on the same page. You're not always going to get along. But I mean, like, I've told this story to a couple people, like in the very beginning, when we first went to production, and it was just Taylor and I doing assembly. And I mean, it was just him and I putting sites together like 20 hours a day. Things were stressful. Parts weren't going together. Like, we hit our breaking point where, I mean, him and I had a pretty big blowout. And it was, I mean, looking back, it's actually kind of scary, because that could have been the day that Dialed died before we even got started. But we got we got the pressure released, and then we literally just looked at each other, and I'm like, what do you want to do? Like, because I can't keep going like this. Like, either we're all in or we walk away tomorrow. And he was like, I don't want that. And I'm like, well, I don't want that either. So we need to just buckle down and move forward. And from that day on, we did, but so it's never easy. But like I said, just at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's about the Dialed community. Like one of the biggest things that stresses me out is like our team has grown so much to where now, like, it's not just Taylor and Jordan and I anymore. Like, we have 12 to 18 people that we're responsible for and their livelihood, right? So like, again, going back to like, free time and having people in your inner circle, like I can't afford to have a weak link, and one of the biggest things, like I didn't realize at first, that unfortunately I kind of had to learn the hard way, within the last like year or two, is like decisions I make both inside Dialed and outside of Dialed don't just affect me. They affect Taylor, they affect Jordan, they affect our employees. And that's a big realization, a big pill to swallow. So it's like, but for me, it was good. Like I realized like I got to button up a lot of things in my personal life. I got to button up a lot of things with who I surround myself with, because I need to be as strong and as good as I can be, so I can be as good as I can be for those people, because ultimately I'm responsible for them, So it's been, like I said, I think I've matured more in the last 5 years than like I would have, but it's honestly like going through those struggles and those hard times is probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I think Jordan and Taylor could probably say the same thing, right? Like as hard as it is to go through that, but again, being all in, that's what it takes, where if you're kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out, I don't know what would have happened with Dialed, and I don't know what would have happened with like Taylor and Jordan and I's relationship, but the fact that we were all in, and like I have their backs just like they have my backs, like that's what got us through. And not just us. I mean, like having, TJ, Keegan, and like our external team, I mean, they were just as big a part as that is, we were. It's just because Dialed is ours, it ultimately, like, it's on us, like we're responsible for everything. So it's hard, but it's also one of the best. Like I couldn't imagine not doing like what I'm doing right now. And it's like, there's days where, trust me, like I stare out my office windows, like it's snowing right now, which finally, and like, there's days where like, I'll just stare out my window and be like, the amount of money that I put into, cause like, I'm financially irresponsible by nature. I always have been. And, so when we started Dialed and it was like, we needed money for this, we needed money for that. Like, I never really knew how much money I had, but, I look back and I'm like, the amount of money that it took to get Dialed going, like I could have just like coasted for like 5 years and just went on all these hunts and just lived life. But that's just not my mentality. Like I've always been, and like I even remember like I like, growing up, like I didn't grow up in like a nurturing family. It was very much like tough love. Like if I was getting bullied at school, or like if I had a problem, it was figure it out. Like you did not get much sympathy. And but like I was always kind of like, I've always kind of been like the underdog. And I always say like I'm not that smart of a person. Like I'm like, I can be very immature. I can be a total dumbass, like, so like I am not a smart person, but I've always been the type where like, if you tell me I can't do something, like I will kill myself proving you wrong. And that, I mean, that's kind of what Dialed, like we were born out of that fire of doubt. And like I said, it's easy to like look out my office window and be like, why did I do this? I could have done anything else. Like, why did I do this? But then, like it's like, I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm sorry, I don't listen to yours, but
it's all right.
Don't take it personally, because I don't listen to any podcast. But like the one thing when we started Dialed, and again, going back to like not really knowing anything about business ownership, like I read every entrepreneurial book. I listened to every entrepreneurial podcast, just trying to find that secret recipe. And like you alluded to earlier, there is no recipe. Like all those books, all those podcasts, they're all full of shit. Like 100% full of shit. Like granted, is there some like little tidbits you can pull from that information? 100%. And I definitely did. But what worked for those people or what works for you isn't necessarily going to work for us. The biggest thing that worked for us was grit and determination. That is the biggest thing. But one of the podcasts I listen to a lot is, the Andy Frisella Real AF podcast.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the one thing, and like, I'm a huge First Form guy. Like I love the First Form outdoor team. We're big supporters of them. They're big supporters of us. So being around that group, it was a huge mindset change for me. But the one thing I've never forgotten was like Andy Frisella talks about is that bitch voice. And I've always had that bitch voice my whole life, but I never knew what it was until him exposing it. But it's like those days where I stare out my window and I'm like, why the fuck did I do this? Like, this is dumb. Like, this is hard, but it's that little bitch voice. And it's like, it's me feeling sorry for myself. And it's okay to have those days. You have to have those days, but it's being able to snap out of it. And like, tomorrow's a new day. And tomorrow, you know what? Like, I'm going to sulk a little bit. I'm going to be a little whiny bitch and complain today. But tomorrow I'm going to come back even harder and stronger. And, so that was one of the biggest things I learned. And like Taylor, I mean, for him being 10 years younger than me, like both him and Jordan have like incredible heads on their shoulders to where like when I have those days, Taylor will flat out be like, yeah, you're kind of being a little bitch. And I'll be like, well, fuck you, dude. Like I'm going through some shit, like, but I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like I need to be better, And like I said, that's probably the coolest thing about everything that we're doing is just like, for me personally, it's that personal growth and kind of just realizing like, I didn't really like the person I was before, but I like who I'm becoming. But if it wasn't for Dialed, I never would have went down that path. So it's just kind of interesting, again, going back to like I don't believe in like coincidences. Like I think everything happens for a reason. And I truly think Dialed was always supposed to happen. It's kind of like Prestige Worldwide. This is what we're meant to do, like,
yeah.
There was a reason Taylor and Jordan and I met, 10 years ago. We didn't know it at the time, but all like signs pointed to the day Dialed started. And even like when we were going down the path of starting it, it was like, is this where, like, do we really want to do this? Like, because in the back of my head, I was always like, this is going to be hard. This is going to be, life changing, both for the good and the bad. And it's going to take, some financial stress and burden. But like, it's easy to let the what ifs and the doubts hold you back. But again, it was like kicking that little bitch voice out of my head and being like, you know what? I'm not going to let this voice control me anymore. And we're just going to go for it. And I mean, every day we're taking risks, we're gambling, but it's like that old saying, no risk, no reward. Right. So like, and we're still, we're 5 years into this. We still have a long ways to go, but it's a great feeling now because it feels like we have a path forward, where before it was just every day was survival mode. Like, we didn't even have distinct roles. It was just everybody do something, just somebody do something. So tomorrow we're not in the gutter, where now it's like, Taylor has his role, Jordan has his role, I have my role. We've hired people for specific roles. So it's like, we're out of that startup phase, but it's also now we're kind of in this phase where we're very vulnerable.
You definitely feel the vulnerability because, I mean, the target's never been bigger. Like the target on our back's never been bigger than it is now. But I also like that. You know what I mean? And again, it kind of goes back to like that underdog, like we're going to prove you wrong kind of mentality, which is kind of always how I've been. So like now, I mean, I would say like we're more motivated than we ever have been.
and trying to change an industry or like a product line within an industry that hasn't had innovation in a long time, or a lot of innovation. Like Dialed, the sites look different. Like everything about it is different than other offerings that have been out there. So, there's all that, then that creates doubt from people, and especially those other companies, because they're like, more probably thinking like, why didn't we think of that with specific things? But like it's so funny when I got the Pruf site. I don't remember when it was.
It was in October
in the last year, whenever
24.
that it was launched. Yeah. So and Taylor sent me one. He's like, let me know what you think. And I hate getting new sites, new bows, anything, because I hate like when I get something set up, I like it. And it was so easy to put it on the bow. And this is where it was like, all right, this comes from hunters and from experience of adjusting the axes being super simple with an Allen key that you can do it. And it's labeled so you know where it's at. You're not trying to figure out what this is pushing and pulling to get everything in the position you need it to. And it was just like very intuitive. And the other thing is like something that's just rock solid. Like I need something that, like the other day I was, when I was in Iowa hunting, my bow just fell out of my truck and hit on the ground, shot, and everything was good. I'm like, sweet. Like that's what I want. I want something that's going to be reliable, or from riding, in my truck and it's just bouncing around, like just trying to have something that's bulletproof and works through it. And it's sweet to see those changes even from the Arxos, which I'm not saying at all that Arxos was a bad platform, but the improvements that were made from the Arxos to the Pruf are like just game changer. And I'm not saying that term lightly or just using it because it's overused, but it truly is. Like I was like smiling when I was setting it up. Like, I'm like, this is awesome.
You can't like hurt our feelings with like the Arxos, because we, like I said, we knew it had its flaws, but you don't know what you don't know, right? And I hate that saying, but it's so true. And then, like I said, as hard as like those couple years were going through the Arxos, we wouldn't have the Pruf if it wasn't for it, right? So like I always say, like the Pruf is the site we set out to build from day one. We just didn't know how. So we had to go through the trials and the hard times with the Arxos to get to the Pruf. And, there's still like some stuff like, we probably will update with the Pruf, like nothing, earth shattering, but there's just always little tweaks you can make. And like I said, I think that's like the big thing with us is like, you will never reach perfection, but that won't stop us from trying. You know what I mean? And, and like when we launched the Arxos, like, and when we first decided, because like when we started Dialed, like it wasn't going to be a site company. I mean, we had all kinds of ideas. It was just, we always came back to sites because we just felt like that's where the most improvement can be done. And there's a lot of really good sites out there. Like there truly is. But we just always felt like there was stuff that could be done better. And like, especially from like on the design side, like, why are there so many parts and components? Like when, like we're hunters, like we need a basic system that is going to withstand like the abuse that we put our equipment through, but is also very user friendly. You know what I mean? And so that was where like, I mean, I remember when we decided we were going to start building a site, we all said like, it has to be different. Like it has to be different. Right. And I always say, and I will continue to say, like the biggest advantage to like our site is it is a site where it will truly benefit you. Like it's not just an aiming tool anymore. Like there's actual features in there where you're gonna reap the benefit of it. Like the angled rail, for example. Like not only is it gonna extend your range, but it's gonna give you a more efficient yardage tape, because as you rotate the dial, the scope slides down the angled rail. It's getting closer to your eye, which raises your impact point. Now your yardage marks get closer together. So yardage adjustment is a lot quicker. You don't have to rotate the dial as far. So yardage acquisition is a lot easier, and like it's all little things, but all these little things kind of come together to where, like I said, it truly benefits you. And that, like I said, that's what we wanted from day one. It's just we didn't know how to build it, to the standards we wanted it. And like the Arxos will always be our baby. Like it will always be our baby. But like I said, the Pruf is the site that we wanted to build from day one. We just didn't know how to.
Well, and one thing that this goes back to the Arxos, but into the Pruf that I didn't know was something I needed or wanted was the bubble level up higher, because it for your eye when you draw back, like that just helps, especially for me that's mostly using that top pin, which is in the center of the housing. It just makes everything line up. It's 100%. Just easier to acquire with your eye versus looking down and looking up.
See, and that was like something like that came from like being at the TAC events and like working with people and like shooting next to people and like realizing how many people did not pay attention to their level, which is like, especially at like those type of events or like Western hunting, it's huge, right? But then it was like, okay, why aren't people using their level? And then you realize, well, with it in the bottom, that's in a really inconvenient spot, because in order to look at the level, you have to take your eye off the target. Why would you take your eye off the target, right? It's like in baseball, keep your eye on the ball. You take your eye off the ball, you miss, right? It's the exact same thing. So putting it at the top, now it's in your peripheral vision. So you almost just stare through it. But if you do take your eye off the target to look at the level, now you're going to be sitting above the target because your hands always follow your eye. So if you look at a level that's in the bottom, your hands are going to drop below the target. And then now you got to fight gravity to get back on target. So again, it was just like all these little things that like we will never use the term like revolutionary because that's such an overused, abused term. But it was just little things that like we experienced over the course of, our combined however many years of shooting and hunting that we just felt like, it was kind of missing from some of the offerings out there. So, and like, I think I actually had this conversation with, do you know Jake from Exopacks? Anyways,
no, I don't.
Great.
No, I know
group,
Mark
like
over
very
there,
similar mentality to us. Like, I'm a huge fan of their packs. Like, yeah, and
I am too. I run one.
But
love it.
I think, and again, I've said this before. The big thing with Dialed is like we never set out to be like a company for everybody, right? Like we are a niche product because of like some of the unique features we have, like, and we understand like not everybody's going to like our stuff, and that's fine, right? Like if you don't like our stuff, I really don't care. But it was more important to us to build like a strong community of like-minded people, and like we're never going to change who we are. Like we do everything differently. Like, and any new product we come out with, we always look at like what the current industry standard is and then how we can do the opposite, because we want to pave our own path. We want to just do what we want to do and kind of build our own personality, which, I mean, if anybody that's followed along Dialed, like we very much have our own kind of renegade, like outlaw kind of personality, but that's also like kind of our mindset when it comes to Dialed. Like we're going to do what we want to do. And if you don't like it, then that's fine. There's plenty of other good products out there for you. But if you do like what we do, and you do support us, then it's like Taylor uses it a lot on social media, like part of the ship, part of the crew. Like that is our mantra. So if you're part of the Dialed ship, like you're part of Team Dialed, we're going to support you just like you support us, right? So that was like one of the most important things too when we started, was like the community factor and like building this community and like having it be a really strong community. And if you look at a lot of the people that are kind of part of our team, both internal and external, it's a lot of the similar kind of mindsets and personalities. And again, for me, not being a people person, the amount of people that I meet at like the TAC events and stuff, and I try to talk to everybody I see that has a Dialed sight on their bow, and thank them, one, for supporting us, but then also just making sure they're happy with it, whatever. But then I start talking to them, I'm like, makes sense. Like Yep. It makes sense why,
Yeah.
you decided to, join our team. And, that's very important to us, is just kind of sticking to our guns. And like I said, like knowing who we are and who we're not, and not being a product for the masses. We're okay with that. Like we never wanted to be that.
The one thing about the business books and the podcast that they say in there that aligns with that is like you have your avatar or like your person that you plan to sell it to. And a lot of times that is your own self, like that you're building it for. But it's funny because you can see even like with the podcast, because typically like the topics and stuff I'm covering are niche to people that are hunting either big woods, whitetails, or want to go on venture hunts and chase things. And it's a niche. It's like when I see someone come up to my booth when I have it at TAC, like I'm like, man, that person listens to the podcast. They've got to look as whether the gear they're using or whatever it is. Like it's it's very obvious. And then you talk to them and their personality, and it's like that's so cool to have. And I think when you build a business, like you're never going to please everybody, and especially if you say, Dialed is the sites are very expensive. They're a premium. You're a premium brand, but if you were to make something that's like extremely cheaper, well then that's what you're getting is something cheaper, which doesn't align with what you want, something that's reliable that you're going on a hunt with, that is not only just a bow sight, it's a tool, it's an extension of you and your bow and what you're doing. One of the most important things to aim and be able to make that shot, like that is a really important feature of it. And I appreciate that fact of not shying away from. And then again, it doesn't mean that that's for everybody, or sometimes it's not in people's budget at this point, and that's fine. Like that's what it is. But I've learned that. So I've learned that once, like with Timber Ninja, we're similar on that front as far as premium products. It's higher price, but it's like literally we want to build the best thing possible. And people are like, this isn't for the working man. It's like, well, it depends on how you define working man, one, but like, again, then if you build something, there's plenty of options out there for you to get cheap climbing sticks and stuff that's there. Like they're out there, like go, if that's in your budget, like that's what it is. And it's not something that you're on this high level because it's a premium product, but it's built for people that really want the best of the best. You just can't make something cheap and make it really good.
You said something there that like, the working man, right? Because like we hear that all the time, like, and we are an expensive product. We're a premium product. And I get it, man. Like, trust me, if we could make all of our stuff the way we do in the United States and have it be cheaper, we 100% would. It's not like, we charge what we charge so Taylor and I, can get rich. Like Taylor and I, like we still do not collect a paycheck from Dialed. So like everything goes right back into the company because again, it goes back to like, we believe in it and we believe in what we're trying to build. But like, why, like, since when did like the term working man mean we have to buy cheap stuff, right? Like, in my opinion, the working man, he's a worker, right? Like we work hard, to support our families, to support our lifestyles and to enjoy the things that we want to enjoy. So why does that correlate to like cheap stuff, right? The working man works hard so he can buy the nice stuff. You know what I mean? And granted, like you're right, it's not in everybody's budget, and that's fine. Like I get it. Like as somebody that like, I mean, I guide so I can pay my bills. As much as I enjoy it, I do it so I can make some money, But I have always been the type where like life is too short for cheap stuff. Like if I'm going to do something, I want to enjoy it as much as I can, which means I want to have the best gear possible so I can enjoy the experience even more. Right. But like I've always struggled with that term working man and it translating to meaning you have to buy cheap shit. That's not at all how it is. But like going back to like what you said with Timber Ninja, like you look at, again, like a lot of the people I meet at the TAC events that are running Dialed, within 5 minutes, like they have a look, they have a build, they have a personality, they have a lifestyle that is very similar to us, And like, again, for me, not being a
Yeah.
people person, like when I meet those people that come into our booth and I look at them and I'm like, yeah, you're just like us. I'm instantly like our conversations just become much easier because we're similar, right? And it's not that I don't enjoy talking to people that aren't that way,
Yep.
because like even if you're not, one of our customers, if you still like come into the booth and talk to us, that's I love that, right? And you may never buy one of our products, but the fact that we had a conversation, whether it was about Dialed or about archery or about hunting or whatever else, we still connected, right? So it goes back to like the whole goal
Yeah.
is just kind of trying to bring everybody together. And we don't always have to agree on, the equipment we use. Like there's so many people that are like, well, you don't need a $600 sight to kill a deer. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. Like how many deer got killed like back in the 80s and 90s with an aluminum framed housing with a little brass pin? Thousands, or whatever. But
Yeah.
again, it's just like if we can keep doing what we're doing and like build premium products which helps you enjoy the hunting experience that much more, that's the goal. You know what I mean? And if we're not in your budget, we get it. Like 100% get it, but that was never our goal, was, to like be a brand for everybody. Like we had a very specific, like I said, kind of brand identity that we wanted to build. And I think that's out there now. And like I said, like a lot of the customers that like we meet, like you're like, yeah, it makes sense, but I mean, that's
Yep.
also kind of an invite to people to where if you want to be more like us, which maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing, I don't know. But if you want to become part of Team Dialed, like that comes with a cost both financially but also like personally, because like we're not going to lower our standards or like sacrifice what we want to do to meet like your expectations. Like we want people to like raise up to like our level and our expectations, and if you don't want to do it, that's fine, but you're not like us. You know what I mean? And that's even like with like our competitors. Like you can try to pretend like you're like us, but you're not like us. Like we're not on the same page. And
Yeah.
I have that same kind of like thought process with like my own personal life. Like you may be a great dude and you may be super, super successful, but we're not the same, like, and that's fine,
Yeah.
but like we're not the same.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that. Now, I've taken a ton of your time here, Scott, but I do want to cover
Yeah.
the new 3VA that came out, because this is something that probably even more than the Pruf that I'm more excited about. Like just this scope housing and the pin configuration, something that from the time that you guys started that I'd been talking with Taylor about. I was like, man, if you guys can figure out a way to do the adjustable vertical 3-pin, like, man, I want that so bad.
Yeah. I mean,
So
we
talk
kind
a
of
little
talked
bit
in the
about
beginning,
that.
like, so we launched our new 3-pin vertical adjustable like a week or two ago. Other than the horizontal pin configuration, this is probably one of the most asked for like pin configurations, just based on feedback from people. And we always knew it was going to be an offering. It was just getting there, right? Like again, with us being a small company, and we have to go in phases, right? Well, this was the next phase. So yeah, I mean, we're super excited about it. It came out better than I think we even expected. But so it's 3 vertical pins, individual vertical pins where they're all independently adjustable. So we've always had vertical pins, whether it was the 1V or the 3V, but they were fixed pin configurations, right? There was no adjusting the pin gap, where now you can. So you can set your top pin for whatever you want it to be, set your second pin for whatever you want it to be, and get that third pin to whatever you want it to be. So yeah, it's the launch was great. I wouldn't say we were surprised at the success of the launch because it has been asked for I mean the last ever since we launched Pruf. Like, I mean, every freaking day we get asked, when are you coming out with a 3-pin adjustable? When are you coming out with a 3-pin vertical adjustable? And so now we did. And I'm excited about it. Like, we were talking, like, I've been a single pin user my entire life, but now, like, I find myself even being like, I can't wait to get my 3VA. Even though I know I'll probably never use the second and third pins, but it's just having that option. It's, in my opinion, it's like the best of both worlds between having vertical pins and horizontal pins. You're combining the two mentalities or the two designs. So yeah, we're really excited about it. And it's available. We'll start shipping those, I think, the first or second week of December. So coming up here pretty soon. It's available on any Pruf configuration as well as our Strike as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this next year with nice. That offering.
Yeah, and so with that configuration, the way I look at it, because the 3VA, or just the 3V, sorry, the one that were the fixed vertical 3-pin, that's what I use, and at that point, that was something that I liked a lot coming from the sight I had before I had used the Dialed was the Spot Hog Fast Eddie with the 2-pin vertical. And I liked that. I was like, because I like the single pin is what I use most of the time, but I like that second frame of reference. And then with the third, I was like, okay, this is even better. But depending on the speed of your bow, that's what's going to get you where those yardages are for that second and that third pin. And actually, my bow last year, the RX9, worked out perfect just depending on my arrow, the speed of the bow, all that stuff, where it was 20, 34, and 50. And you were actually talking before we started recording, like you would probably set yours up 20, 35, and 50. And I did like that configuration, but then the AX3 that I had set up was a little bit faster, and then it made those gaps a little bit more where it's 20, 38, and like 54. And I learned from the guys at Hoyt, and this kind of has to do with like the holdover of the 1-pin ideal, but Jeremy over at Hoyt, when he's mostly elk hunting, but he just uses 1 pin, but at 50, and he aims a foot low, anything 40 yards and in, because of hitting either the upwards of the trajectory or the downwards, you're going to hit within a 3 inches high or low space, and it works. Like, I started using that, so I like that third pin to be at 50 as a frame of reference for me. Even if I'm whitetail hunting, I can use that if I'm trying to judge deer's coming through. That helps me be able to really fine tune that, and I found that to be super helpful for me. So now I'll be able to adjust that and not have to be by happenstance that it hits that level. And then I still am not 100% sure if I do 25 and 35 for my first 2 pins, or do what I had before, the 20 and 35, however that might work. But I'm going to play with it a lot. Actually, probably by the time we have this podcast,
I say it should be showing up
at the
any
doorstep
day
here,
or any time today. But so there's a lot to like unpack there, because like, going back to like the whole concept of like the 3V, like the fixed pin with the 3, or the fixed post with the 3 pins, right, was my mentality, and like kind of how I always like sold the 3V was, I don't really care what my pin gapping is as long as I know what the pin gapping is, right? So whether it's 20, 33, 47 or 20, 38, 53, I don't care as long as I know, right? But for someone like me, so like similar to like what Jeremy kind of explained to you, like I really want to do another video on this test, but there's a test you can do to where you can figure out where to set your dial for like a single pin, to where you can cover the most range without ever touching your dial, right? So like for me, I always set my dial to 40 for my top pin, because from 20 to 40, I can do the hold over and hold under, right? And then anything past that, I know what my second and my third pin are. But like most likely, I'm going to get the range dial to it. But regardless of where you dial, you always know what your 3 pins are. So that's different than what a lot of people are used to, right? But like the whole goal with any multiple pin is like, where do I set my pins to I can cover the most range to not have to touch my dial? So now with the 3VA, you can set those 3 pins, right? So like, in my opinion, setting a sight up for 20, 30, 40 makes 0 sense because I can shoot from 20 to 40 with 1 pin. So why would I want to cover that range with 3 pins when I can do it with 1, right? So that's where like I would do 20, 35, and 50 because now I can shoot from 20 to 50 without ever touching my sight, right? Which that's the whole goal, right? But if I can get the exact yardage, then I'll dial my sight to that yardage. But then if I have to shoot past that, I can either readjust or look to see what my second and third pin are set at. I think what a lot of people don't realize is like when you set your 3 pins to like a 20, 30, 40, it's only 20 and 30, 20, 30, and 40 when your dial is at 0. As soon as you rotate the dial, your gaps change, right? So that's where I always said, does it really matter what the gap is, or does it matter knowing what the gap is? But I also understand, like, it's easy, like, especially for people that have been shooting for a long time, they get used to, doing things the same way. So many people are used to that 20, 30, 40 gap. And at the end of the day, you got to do what works best for you, right? And what you're most comfortable with. But now just having the option of actually picking your gaps is obviously, it's more attractive. But I would still set it up to where I can cover the most yardage with my 3 pins without having to adjust. So that's like I said, I would do a 20, 35, 50. But, it's just having the adjustability that's the attractiveness.
Yeah, and I might try that first, but based on that, because what I was doing this summer, I did a video on it, but I was testing like the forgiveness, I was calling it the range forgiveness of the different pins, where I had set my top one at 20, 25, and 30, and then just shot different yardages. What I would do is I'd take a picture on my phone and I'd use a little marker thing and I'd draw circles around them to see like, okay, this is where it hit at that. So I could look at those next to each other and be like, okay, here's where I had better forgiveness. Or if I'm in, say, a whitetail setting where I'm in tight, I'm hunting in timber and it's thick, that most of my shots are 20 and in, well, then I'm just going to keep it at 20 because like that's where most of my opportunities are going to be at. So it really, kind of depends, but it gives you that option to be able to do it. But just a quick example, this year in Pennsylvania, the deer I shot, if I didn't practice with those different gaps and understanding and learning that, I wouldn't have killed the deer that I did, where I had the 20, 34, and 50, and he ended up being at 43, and I would have never had the confidence before to take that shot, but I've been practicing it all summer. It was like just walking around the yard, leaving it fixed, just throwing arrows around the yard and just shooting and seeing where I was hitting based on those gaps and coming up with those little tricks in your head. And it's like, because for me, for the longest time, I was struggling with missing or doing things. Like I was getting good at getting opportunities, but I wasn't capitalizing. And I'm like, I got to stop this. Like I'm working so hard to get these opportunities and I'm just flubbing it. Like I need to figure that out. And everyone's got their own, like you said, you like using, traditionally the regular single pin, and that's what Jeremy at Hoyt was saying. That's his thing. And then Evan at Hoyt was completely different, and he liked having multiple pins. So,
well, and that's
that's why there's options.
I can never use horizontal pins. Like me visually, I can't do it. And again, it goes back to like everybody needs to use what they're most comfortable with, but like. For me, with horizontal pins, having all these pins in the scope housing, you can't focus on the target and the pin at the same time because it's using 2 different sides of your brain. So in order to make sure you're using the right pin, you have to do this back and forth between target to pin, target to pin, target to pin. Where with verticals, it's like you just focus on the target and your hands will naturally push the pins to the target, right? So that's why I've always been a single pin shooter or like a top pin shooter. And like, I think you made a very good point where a lot of people don't do this is, so many people, it all comes down to how do you practice? Like so many people go to the range or shoot in their yard and they shoot 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and they're either always adjusting their dials or they're using those exact pins, but they're not shooting the 33 yards, the 48 yards, the 54 yards, right? And that's where, like, again, I taught myself And there's a test you can do. It's called finding your maximum point blank range. But it's where can I like so doing the same thing you did. Like I did a test where I set my sight at 20, started at 10 yards, and I would walk back in 5-yard increments all the way out to 40. And I had two black lines on a target, which were about 10 inches apart, because that's roughly about like a kill zone on a whitetail, right? You're talking top of lungs to bottom, of heart.
Yep.
And so with my sight at 20, I would aim at the top line, go back in 5-yard increments all the way out to 40. And as you go back, still aiming at the top line, your arrows are going to start dropping down the target, right? So then I would count how many arrows landed in that kill zone and then what the impact range was. So from the first arrow to the last arrow. Then I would do that again with my sight set at 30, aiming at the top line, measure it, count how many arrows. Well, then I would rotate my dial to 40, but now as I go back, you aim at the bottom line because your line of sight and the trajectory of the arrow meet like further out, right? Or actually closer together, I'm sorry. So instead of walking back and your arrows dropping, you walk back and your arrows start climbing the target. So when I did that, I found out that with my sight set at 40, aiming at the bottom line, from 20 to 40, every single arrow landed in that kill zone, and it was the smallest impact length. And then once I got past 40, I would aim at the top line, and I could go all the way out to 50 yards, aiming at the top line, and arrows were still dropping in the kill zone. It was when I got past 50 that I was dropping out of the kill zone. So with my sight set at 40, I can shoot from 20 to 50 yards without ever touching it. So that's how I hunt. So, and for me, it's way easier to aim at a horizontal line than it is a dot. I cannot shoot at dots. So like going back to like your experience, I would say, I mean, it's been a while now since I've killed something with my bow, but so I'm not going to sound like the best resource for this, but I've done it multiple times. But like the last two elk I killed with my bow, the one was at 55 yards and then the other one was like right at 50, and my sight was set at 40 and I aimed at the top of their back and, crushed them. So like telling you before this, like I finally get a shot at a whitetail a week ago in Wyoming. It was at 36 yards. And instead of using my 20 on the back, I tried to use my middle pin, which I never do. I never have. And I missed. But it's like, why? Why did I do that? I've never done that. I've never thought about doing it. Why didn't I just do what I know, and I probably would have crushed them. But again, it just comes back to like whatever you're comfortable with. But I think like I said, you made a very good point of like practicing those uncommon scenarios, and like those uncommon ranges, and being like, okay, if I set my pin gap to 20, 30, 40 and they're at 37, what am I going to do? Do I aim high with my second pin? Do I aim low with my third pin? Like that's where it doesn't matter what pin configuration you have. The scenario is still the same, but it's knowing what are you going to do. And like in my case, I made a bad decision, which why I still do not know, but it was a decision I made and now I paid the consequence of missing, but it just goes back to like practicing, and again, just using whatever you're comfortable with. And that's why now we have, the vertical post fixed, the vertical post adjustable, and horizontal pins. So, take your pick.
Last question on the 3VA, how on the 3V there was 3 separate indicators. So when you had it on your dial and you dialed it, all those would line up with those indicators. Does that still work? It's the
exact same. It's just so whether it's a horizontal pin or a vertical post or just a vertical post, like you still have to use your top pin to find your yardage tape, right? But then once you do that, then you can set the pins to whatever yardage you want, and then you just adjust the multi-indicator needles accordingly. So if you do a 20, 30, 40 split, you'll set your indicator needles to 20, 30, 40. If you do a 20, 35, 50 split, you set your indicator needles to 20, 35, and 50. And then again, that way, when you rotate the dial, you always know what your 3 pins are set at. But again, when you rotate the dial, your gaps change. Like that is the one unique thing with our site with the angled rail is the gapping between your pins will stay more consistent than like on a vertical post rail because your marks are coming close together. So if you have a 10-yard split or a 15-yard split, the chances of it staying within like plus or minus a few yards of that gap are pretty good. So it's not like it's going to be a 10-yard gap and then all of a sudden it's going to go to a 20-yard gap. It should stay like pretty consistent.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the multi-indicator needles are going to work the exact same way, and you'll set them to whatever your pins are. And then, like I said, that way when you rotate the dial, you always know what your pins are set at. So,
yeah, no,
and it's honestly, like I said,
awesome,
I think it's, again, like being somebody that has been such a huge proponent to single pins for so long, like I truly think like the adjustable 3-pin, it's the best of both worlds. So for like us whitetail hunters, where most of our shots, like if you're in timber or, wherever, most of your shots are going to be 40 and under, right? So now you have 3 pins that can cover that range without having to adjust it. But if you get on the edge of a food plot or, a field where you could stretch it out a little bit further, you do have the option of running it like a single pin where you dial to the exact yardage, you focus on one pin, and I think that's like what screwed me up. Like I'm using this as an excuse, but it was just a piss poor shot is trying to use a second pin that I'm not used to. That was, like I said, that was a dumb decision, but it's also something I don't practice. Like I practice the hold over, hold under. I don't practice using my second and third pin. So now again, taking that experience, it's just something I gotta work on for next year is, if I am going to use my second and third pin, I need to practice with those pins. And I just don't, because I've never practiced that way. I just have always practiced hold over and hold under.
Yeah, because when you think you're going to be able to make it happen in the moment, you're going to fall back on what you know and what you've done forever.
Right.
And I'm saying that from experience. That's why this year I put so much emphasis on learning that. And it's like,
and like I said, I mean, not to beat a dead horse, but it just goes back to like, and I'm just as guilty, like practice how you hunt. And like, we see it, out West all the time. Like when we all practice like controlled environments, standing vertical. We don't practice from, shooting off our butts or shooting off of one knee or, which, from a tree stand, it is more controlled. You may shoot sitting down or you're shooting standing up. Right. But it just goes back to, like I said, like practicing how you're going to hunt. And I'm just as guilty. Like I don't always practice like I hunt. And there's probably a little arrogance there where I'm like, put me in a situation and I'll figure it out. But it's, just, and I go back to like, this was probably the worst year I've ever had as far as like pre-hunting preparation. Like I have not shot hardly at all this year. And, not having that muscle memory cost me, but like practicing how you practice, you're building that muscle memory. So when it is the heat of the moment, because it's so easy when you come to full draw, you just black out. Right. And that's how I felt. Like when I'm at full draw, I'm like, shit, I'm gonna get a shot. It was like I'd never shot a bow before. I'm like, what is this little thing I gotta look through? Like, where am I anchoring? I'm like it was like it was just
Bubble.
Like pins are on, wham, Hammer City, and it didn't work out. But it's again, it is practicing and building that muscle memory. So it's just like adrenaline is always going to take over, but it's just the more prepared you can be, the better. And that's again going back to like the 3VA. I think it's just it's the best of both worlds, and I think it's just a very just kind of instinctive setup. So, but like I said, we're excited. So
no, I'm excited for it. Yeah, no, I'm excited. Hopefully, once we get off this, go check my door, and it probably be sitting there, and to be able to fool around with it. And I'll do, for anybody listening, I'll do a video of kind of going through it when I set it up to show some of the stuff that's not as easily explained over audio. So I'll
at the end of the day, I mean, there's no. I wouldn't say there's a wrong way to set up like any of our sites. Like there's no wrong way of doing it. There's just what I would consider a more efficient way of doing it. But at the end of the day, I mean, you can set up any site the way that it works best for you.
Yeah. Well, Scott, man, I appreciate you coming on here.
Oh,
and
for sure.
It was good just to get to catch up with you, but to be able to share all this stuff and talk with everyone here that's listening, I greatly appreciate it. Know you're busy. And well, first, with the time of recording this is going to come out for a couple of weeks, but hope you have a good Thanksgiving and everything, and hopefully get a little bit of downtime.
It's a bittersweet time of year because hunting seasons are kind of starting to wrap up, but we're ramping up as far as getting into kind of the beginning of our busy season. So it's all good, and it's crazy. It's been as long as it has since we've talked last, and I appreciate having us on and being able to kind of tell more about our story. And
thank you everyone listening. You can go check out dialedarchery.com, Dialed Archery on all the social medias, and there's a couple of other sub social media pages that I'll put links in the bio because I don't remember all of the Dialed Archery shop and a few other ones. Those guys are marketing geniuses.
So I have no clue.
That's why I didn't ask you, to be honest. I was like,
it's
all right,
so bad. Like there's times where I don't even know what we're doing because I don't have social media, and I find out from like people be like, oh, that new small batch you dropped was pretty sweet. And I'm like, what small batch? Well, you launched it on social media yesterday. I'm like, oh, I don't know. So it's amazing what I find out, but so
that's awesome. All right, man. Well, thank you again. Thanks, thanks everybody for listening. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this conversation, share it with your buddies. Leave us a rating, a review, and subscribe. If you want to check out more content like this, there's plenty in the links below. We truly appreciate having you guys along with us.